So here we are.
Here we are.
The Anthology.
The Anthology. Second part of TTPD.
Mm-hmm.
How did we like this one?
Well, I feel like that's a complicated question.
Yeah.
Like the musicality of this album is more what I prefer over the
Tortured Poets Department.
Yeah, the Tortured Poets Department, where she was using a lot of the pop synth sounds that she's kind of settled into.
Which I love. I love her development of that. Mm-hmm. I think it's my favorite. Midnights and TTPD, like the sound, I love that.
Yeah, and it's really solidified. It's really confident. It's what it is. It's 100% there.
A solid Taylor Swift offering.
Yes. Which album did I say that? And it was a diss.
I think it might have been Lover.
That sounds right.
Until You Changed Your Mind, maybe?
Yeah.
Questionable. I'm not sure. We'll have to go back and re-listen to our own podcast to see which one you said that about.
Actually, I think it was the Tortured Poets Department where I was like, there's nothing different. Because when I first listened to it, and I was like, oh, there's nothing musically different.
Or maybe Midnights, though.
Maybe.
Anyway, it is a solid Taylor Swift offering.
It is a solid Taylor Swift offering. And the Anthology, the second half, if you will, the double of album. The double album.
Yeah.
It's much more evocative of the Folklore and Evermore sounds, and overall it's gentler instrumentally.
Yeah.
Which I enjoy.
And I think that kind of it musically hits the nail on the head for what she's trying to communicate, because I feel like in the Anthology, which there's a clue in the title, the Anthology, it's kind of a reflection and a looking back on all of her past works and adding new musings to it, which she's so good at, going back to her old work and making it new somehow. So I do think the gentler music kind of goes with that same theme, you know?
Even the more upbeat songs on this album, like Still High School and Thank You, Amy. I think it's kind of more upbeat
but muted still. It's still in that gentle rhythm.
It's more of a groove than a bop, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that. Do you want to talk about broad strokes of the album first and then get into the individual songs?
Yeah, let's do that, because I feel like with the Tortured Poets Department, there was such a structure to it that really like opened our eyes to what was going on.
Yes.
And I feel like we haven't unlocked the Anthology in the same way, but there are definite things that we picked up on.
There are things here, and I feel like there's so much more. I just have to like ruminate on it more.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm missing information to really complete my whole thoughts on the album. But broadly, but for now,
broadly, there are definite steps backwards in time where the Black Dog, track 1 or 17, it's track 17, but like
it's 1 on the double album.
It really fits with the Tortured Poets Department. It just fits, and it goes together thematically and all this stuff, and then describes a relationship that has ended already. The track after that, I'm Gonna Get You Back, musically is very similar to Midnights. It sounds like it feels like it belongs on the Midnights album, and it steps back in time a little bit and describes a relationship that hasn't quite ended yet. There's still an opportunity for one or the other to leave, and she hasn't decided what she's going to do.
Yeah, and Midnights is kind of, at first Swifties weren't really sure, like, did she break up with Joe? Is this the breakup album? We're not sure. There's definite
on again, off again album.
Just like their relationship. So yeah, definitely like reminiscent of that musically and lyrically. Yeah, you're right.
And then the Albatross definitely feels like it could have come from Evermore.
Or Folklore even.
Folklore, yeah.
I'd say the same for Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus.
Yeah, that one especially reminded me of the song Cardigan.
Really?
Yes, like when I listened to it, I could see the Cardigan music video playing in my head, which is crazy because I've only seen it once.
It sticks with you, doesn't it?
It really does, and especially considering, this is obviously about Harry Styles.
I think so too. Yeah. I'm glad that you said that, and I think we must have talked about it, but like just even the song title of giving both male and female names of like, who are you with? I'm not sure. Are they male? Are they female? Harry Styles is out as bi, I think. So
which I didn't know. Like I don't know celebrity news. I still live under a rock despite this podcast being my business. But reading the lyrics is just so reminiscent of the tone of their relationship.
Yeah, there's one line.
I was going to ask you if you hadn't told me hey, is there any chance Harry Styles came out as bi? 'Cause,
Seriously,
this
yeah.
sounds like it's about Harry Styles.
Really? Because, like, there's this one line specifically where she says, I changed into goddesses, villains, and fools, changed plans and lovers and outfits and rules just to outrun my desertion of you. And if that's not, like, a recap of, like, everything after 1989 from Reputation to right now, I don't know what is. To me, that's just, like, I'm encapsulating everything that has happened in my life since I left you or you left me, you know.
Whatever it was that happened
Whatever
there.
it was that happened on that boat. I mean, she did leave the vacation they were on first, even though he was the one that went off and did other stuff. So, like, it's possible she felt that she deserted him, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's whatever at this point,
Yeah,
you know?
it doesn't matter. But, like, the line altogether, I'm like, that
Fits.
Yeah. For me. I think that fits really well.
So then that feels very folklore.
Mm-hmm.
And what nailed it for me as being about Harry Styles is the line, the decade would play us for fools.
Yeah.
And it's been 10 years since the album 1989 came out.
Mm-hmm.
That was 2014. TTPD is 2024. Just
fits.
seems like that's the time that she was pointing to.
Absolutely. And I'm going to argue later that I think Peter is also about him. I think, since we're doing broad strokes, I think on this half of the album, she's really taking a look at, like, what in her life led her to this point writing the Tortured Poets Department and the Anthology. What led her here, and where were the pivotal decisions? What were the pivotal decisions that led her here? And I think that after her relationship with Harry Styles, and I'd say probably like Calvin Harris, and that middle in between time between 1989 and Reputation, when she starts dating Joe, that's the moment where, like, everything from there becomes kind of inevitable for her. Dating Joe and starting down this path and everything since then. So she's kind of going back, I think, and reminiscing all her time through all of those albums with this relationship. How did it end? Which is literally a track title.
In fact, it's the track 5, and that would be the 5th album back would be Lover.
Right, absolutely. And then the track 5, of course, on TTPD is So Long London, which of course is also about Joe. So it all kind of fits together looking back there. And what I think is also interesting is the track after How Did It End is So High School, which is about Travis Kelce. But a lot of the images in that song are about football, obviously. Travis Kelce being what is he? What's his position?
Don't ask me. He's a football player.
Something about like a runner back or
linebacker.
No, but that's a real position. But I don't think that's his position. Whatever. He's a football player.
This is not a sports podcast.
Yeah, I don't know if you know that, but we don't do that here. But the mental images that are given are obviously about high school, about the football players, which calls back immediately to the You Belong With Me music video where she's in the band. And
15, the song on Is That Fearless?
Yeah,
where she
also on
says,
Fearless.
hey, there's more important things than dating the boy on the football team.
Turns out there's not.
Turns out to Taylor Swift.
There's not.
There's not.
Yeah. And so it's interesting to me that she goes from reflecting on how did this end, all of this 6.5 year relationship and everything that happened then. How did it end? And we're going back to basically kind of the good parts of before all of that happened.
Yeah.
You know? But adult.
Yeah. Revisiting in a fresh way, I think. Knowing that you can't really disentangle yourself from your past completely because it's what makes you who you are.
Right.
But letting it transform you, like we talked about with the alchemy. Going back.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, so high school specifically, it sounds like a track from the 90s. Who do we keep saying it sounds like?
Sixpence None the Richer.
Yeah, it sounds like that song Kiss Me, which is like, it's on my autumn playlist.
It's just
like,
a great song. It's
great.
a classic for a reason.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's got that soft 90s indie rock.
Yeah. Not
sort of
quite the
vibe.
like alternative grunge. It's like when you think of the 90s and the early 2000s, it's like it was either grungy or it was this.
Yeah.
And this is the soft one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that The Prophecy fits really well in with that whole idea of going back, revisiting things, and kind of, in my mind, the album is revisiting, like I said, the whole chunk of time from Reputation to now, but then also kind of playing with the idea of like, what if I went back in time to the point where everything changed and redid it? And the prophecy talks about that, like, what if we changed the prophecy? Like, who do I have to talk to redo everything?
Is this really inevitable?
Yeah.
Did it have to be this way? If so, why? Was it fate?
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
And those are themes that she's dealt with on previous albums too.
Yeah. And she feels like the choices that she made led her to this point, and is she stuck?
Yeah.
Or can she go back, you know?
There's even a line that she repeats from So High School in the prophecy, the hand on the throttle image.
Oh, I did catch that. Interesting.
Yeah, because like I kept trying, you know, I'm trying to make it fit a structure because the first half of the album was so structured.
Right.
And so like I'm looking at these and, you know, the first 5 tracks, they seem to fit so exactly with stepping back album by album, era by era.
If not lyrically, certainly musically, it's very similar to those albums.
Yeah. And then there are 3 extra tracks. Because there are more tracks on this album than she has released albums.
Right.
Which makes me think of the triptych on Folklore, where we had Cardigan, we had August, and we had Betty. And I think the message of Betty, of like, this is me trying, really fits with what she's saying in the prophecy. Like, I want to go back. I want to change the way things are. And so if I, you know, this could be a total reach, total stretch. I don't know if this is what
Reach
Taylor
and
meant.
stretch, girl.
Your guess is as good as mine. Please, listeners, write in. Tell us what you think.
Tell us.
But I would posit that Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus, So High School, and The Prophecy are the triptych.
Interesting.
I don't know. I feel like it's a stretch, but I feel like there's too much there for me to just dismiss.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much about this album that I feel like I want more information. I need more time to ruminate on it, and I feel like it would click somehow. Like
there is a key. We just haven't found it.
I know, and it bothers me. I think about it all the time. It's my Roman Empire. I think about it all the time. But I do think like the last 3 songs on this album, maybe minus Robin, because it's not one of my favorites. I don't listen to it all the time. But I do think like the Bolter and the Manuscript are descriptions of her life or how she is perceived. The Bolter, I think, is either how she thinks she's perceived or maybe how she perceives herself as a Bolter. And then the Manuscript definitely is just going, I mean, line by line is about her life and reading things back. So...
Which is kind of, I think, reflective of the entire project of the anthology, like you were saying, where she starts off saying, I'm trying to reread the manuscript of this particular torrid affair, this specific event, this specific situation.
Right.
And then it ends up being her whole life. Right.
Because everything that happened in this specific situation was just a culmination of all of her life decisions, and so they're inextricably intertwined,
which feels like something inescapable, like fate or a prophecy.
Yes. And she has the prophecy and she has Cassandra right after that, which is a Greek, if you don't know Greek mythology, she's a prophetess.
I think that's in the Oresteia, right? The play by Aeschylus,
probably,
where Cassandra is brought home to Greece as a prisoner of Agamemnon. And the thing about Cassandra is she is a prophetess and she will always tell the truth. Everything she says is absolutely true, but she is cursed so that no one will ever believe her, is the thing.
Well, it's interesting too, because I think that image, not necessarily a prophetess per se, but same vibes in the albatross, where the albatross as a bird and historically is seen as like a good omen for seafarers, but in the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, when the careless, thoughtless man shoots it down, it's now a bad omen that he has to wear around his neck as like a thing of shame. So what she really is like freedom, good omens, all of these things, and now she's only being seen as something else.
Yeah, and I feel like this album caught some flack that it didn't deserve,
for sure,
because of all of the literary allusions, where people wanted it to be much more than she meant it to be with reference to the literature, where it's like the albatross you know, it's you can't reference an albatross without it having some significance in light of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
Because
like
it's
you
so
just
famous.
can't.
Yeah.
That's not something you can do in the context of Western English literature. But it's not a reflection on the Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
No.
She's taking it for her own purposes, the way she has consistently done skillfully throughout her career.
Yeah.
So it's not meant to be literary analysis, folks.
No, she is using the albatross in the context of the poem and the meanings there, but also taking it for her own purposes. Yeah, like you said, it's not a literary analysis.
Right.
It's a literary allusion. So the line I was thinking of is, she's the albatross, she is here to destroy you. And later on it says, she's the death you chose, you're in terrible danger. But then towards the end of the song, she says, I crossed my thoughtless heart, spread my wings like a parachute, I'm the albatross, I swept in at the rescue. So again, this idea of like, everyone is saying that she is one thing, destruction, but really I was the one to rescue you. And to me, that just has sort of this similar tone of Cassandra, where she's like, I'm telling you the truth, but no one believes me.
Yeah, and it's a desire to flip the script.
Exactly. So a lot going on.
A lot's going on. What are some of your favorite tracks?
Ah, man. I really love the Albatross. I think it's one of the more poetic songs on the album, with tons of literary allusion that I love, and I love it musically as well. I think I Look in People's Windows. I listen to it all the time. I love it musically. It's short. It's a little bit sad, just kind of about the longing of, what if I made eye contact with you one more time? And doesn't that just gut you?
Yeah.
Oh, someone you loved for so long and it's over. And just the idea of, what if we made eye contact once more through a window?
Yeah.
I have chills.
It's good stuff, and it's kind of the reason I didn't like this album at first, is that like the whole thing, you know, very few exceptions, So High School being one of them, they're sad songs, and they're songs about being sad, and that is the point. Yes, correct. Here we are.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of nonstop on that, with very few caveats. Like, The Bolter is an upbeat song. It's cheery, but the concept is sad.
Yeah. The Bolter hits really hard for me. I don't think it's one of my favorites for that reason, but it's something that I fear, and this is getting just really personal on this podcast, I fear that other people perceive me this way as well. And so it's like one of those, like, oh man, this just hits so hard. I'm sure there are other girls
like,
who,
I'm tagged in this photo and I don't like it, and it's not actually me.
Like it. It's not me. It doesn't look like me with that double chin. You know what I mean? So I don't like it, but it's interesting. It resonates with me, and like my fears of myself, certainly. The Prophecy, I listened to that so many times.
I really like The Prophecy also. I like the tone of it. It's kind of reflective, questioning. I think it's probably my favorite track on this album, just for songwriting.
Yeah.
It's musically pleasant, and pairing it with Cassandra, which is right after. I kind of forget that they're two different songs.
Yeah, they flow right into each other. Absolutely.
We should talk about Peter, because I think it plays into our broad strokes.
For sure.
Because it gets kind of fuzzy in the middle. Like, I can't draw you the exact line for line, this is referring to this album. It gets fuzzy in the middle.
It does. It bothers me deeply. But it, like, overall, it does feel like a very reflective album. And
in some kind of order, right?
Yeah, in some kind of order. It's an anthology. You have to think that it's organized that in some way. But it bothers me that I can't figure out what way.
But we get to the end. I would definitely argue for the manuscript being the corollary to the debut album. Like, I think that's clear, the idea of going back to the beginning.
Absolutely.
And so Robin and the Bolter and Peter, I feel like they're all sort of in this speak now fearless muddle zone, where there's a lot of fairy tale imagery, which for Peter is flipped. It's kind of inverted. It's like the photo negative, where we had all these classic fairy tale elements showing up on those early albums. The white horse, the tower, the fairy tale, the Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
And then Peter is, what about growing up.
And I almost wonder if that's because Harry Styles was such a pivotal relationship for her when she was young. And I think the idea, you know, he was the red love, right?
The carnation.
Yeah, the just, you know, the fiery one, the dangerous one that pushed her, I think, to be wanting more comfort and stability. Which I guess we can make the argument as well that Matty Healy might have fallen into that category and in that time zone. So I'm sure there's arguments that this is about him, but
I feel like if they are, they're because he was an echo of
Harry.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, and I love a tight metaphor. All of these, all these lines are great. Forgive me, Peter, my lost fearless leader, in closets like cedar, preserved from when we were just kids. But the line that really makes me feel like it is about Harry Styles is the goddess of timing once found us beguiling.
Yeah, she had that line, distance and timing, and
breakups,
just never working out because of circumstances.
Yes. And then if there's anyone that I feel like is a boy in a man's body, it's Harry Styles. He's very childlike in his goofiness, just like as a person. Which is very sweet. I think like as a young person looking at, I mean, just videos of him, obviously, when he was young, it was like this boyish charm and everything, but I could see how it would be unhealthy for a relationship. Now that he's grown up.
Especially for an adult. Like,
yeah,
boyish charm is great for a boy.
Yeah. Now that he's grown up, it's like, it's probably a little bit better, but he still has a boyish charm, I think. But yeah, you said you were going to grow up and then you were going to come find me. And she repeats that over and over again. Promises oceans deep. He got that boat tattoo, the ship tattoo on his arm while she was there. I feel like a lot of her references to him are boats and ships sinking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All of that kind of stuff. So for me, it's a pretty clear tie to him.
Yeah. And I think the fact that she has a song on Speak Now called Never Grow Up, like, contributes to this walking back to early albums.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know the content of that specific song, Never Grow Up, was very different. It wasn't really Peter Pan. It was about her not transitioning to adulthood without trouble, which I think is true of all people. Growing up is hard. And so I think it's another exercise in that reframing thing that she does so often. Yeah. Where I think Never Grow Up was then a plea to her innocent self, and now it's, wow, that was, why wouldn't you grow up?
Yeah,
please.
Yeah, please grow up, actually. Please do. Yeah. And just yet another throwback to referring back to old work is Thank You, Amy, where it's the only song on this album that has lowercase letters except for the capitalized letters that she used to do in her sheet notes. Her liner notes. And the K-I-M are all capitalized for Kim.
So there's no guessing about which album this is.
Yeah, this is
very clear.
Yeah. This is thanking Kim Kardashian for being so mean so that she could rise above and do all the things that she did.
Yeah, which I think is a kind of a classic, success is the best revenge kind of a tale.
Yeah.
That's a fun song.
I enjoy it.
Yeah. It's one of the upbeat ones on this album. Why do you think she released this as a double album rather than two different things?
That's a difficult question. I feel like what happened with Joe and also Matty Healy was such a pivotal blow-up, world-stopping event for her while she's having the most pivotal blow-up, world-stopping world tour, that it just kind of deserved two albums. That I think there's a lot of songs that she's written that have not been released. And this time she was like, I'm just going to write it all down and everyone's going to hear all of it. And it'll be that. And that'll be that. And we can package it up and we can move on. I think it's very cathartic.
Yeah, just get it all out.
Get it out.
Get it done.
Yeah, cry it all out. Tell my story and let it be done, which is what she says in the manuscript. Now, my story's yours, kind of a thing.
What's the last line of that? It was really powerful. The story isn't mine anymore, which reminds me of how she described one of her earlier kind of heartbreak songs where she wrote it and she felt awful writing it because she was, processing all those emotions again. And then she played it in a concert and heard her fans singing it and knew that it had become something it wasn't before. By giving it to the fans, she's letting them transform it.
Yeah, the 10-minute version of All Too Well. Yeah.
Is that what it was?
It was.
Oh.
Yeah. Exactly. It was exactly that. So, which is so powerful. And like, that's the power of songwriting and storytelling in that way.
Yeah. Have we talked about the 10-minute version?
I think.
I don't know, because it was one of the vault tracks that we haven't released an episode about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I saw commentators giving her grief for writing a 10-minute breakup song.
Are you kidding me?
If you listen to it, like it doesn't feel like it's 10 minutes.
No.
It's like, oh, this is the story as it was meant to be told.
Yeah.
Like it's the pacing is good, the poetry's good. It's
musically, she keeps it fresh for the whole 10 minutes. It doesn't sound like you're just listening to the same thing over and over again. And you are, like, the themes of the song, but she somehow keeps it fresh. It doesn't feel like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I wish she had released that originally because it made it the hit that it is. And also, how dare you say that she can't write 10 minutes about friggin' Jake Gyllenhaal? So old for her at the time and being like, I don't want to say a predator, but like certainly emotionally abusive. But anyway, neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's for another episode.
That's for another episode. But I got the outro that you were talking about for the manuscript. The only thing that's left is the manuscript. One last souvenir from my trip to your shores. Now and then I reread the manuscript, but the story isn't mine anymore.
Getting it out there, externalizing it.
Yeah, I think that's why she did a double album.
That makes sense.
What are your favorites besides The Prophecy and why?
Musically, I like The Black Dog and I'm Gonna Get You Back. Specifically because of the way they do reflect the style of TTPD and Midnights, but they're still in this more muted way.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really skillful musical thing that she did, where she's saying, yes, this is a pop song, but it's also folk. Like it's
also mine, and it has my flair and all of that.
Yeah, I think musically, I think that was really skillful composition.
I love the content of The Black Dog as well. I'm shocked that I forgot to leave it or to put it onto my favorites list too, because it's referring to the black dog and the old hag, right? The black dog and the old hag, which are like two visual images that are somewhat commonly notated as being something that people see when they suffer from either bipolar or depression or
kind of like
something in
from
there.
Especially from the days before we had really clear diagnoses and not like we have really clear diagnoses today, but back in the old days when people didn't really know what to do with mental illnesses, I believe it was Winston Churchill was one of the famous sufferers from this particular hallucination of having an old hag come and sit at the foot of your bed.
And a black dog
and
sometimes.
A black dog would also appear as a representation of depression.
Yeah. And these are not shared hallucinations, but like multiple people have reported this.
Right.
There's
so
a common
interesting
thread.
It's not like the people are seeing them at the same time, but many people reported seeing these things. Yeah.
And there's also the Black Dog Foundation, which is a foundation centering around bipolar disorder as well. So there's that. With the tie into mental illness and the whole TTPD insane asylum thing. Also probably a commentary on one or both of her ex-lovers and what they were suffering from.
It's kind of interesting too that she turns it into a pub where it's like the symbol of the foundation of the thing that's supposed to help you overcome this problem has become a place where you just hang out
and drink. Yeah.
It's like you've stopped seeking help at this point.
Yeah. There's a line in the Albatross that reminds me of this where she says, only liquor anoints you. And anointing is usually sort of like a setting apart of someone, marking them as different. And the only thing that anoints this person is liquor.
Yeah.
Which is very sad. But then it's just full of great lines, like old habits die screaming.
Oh yeah. And the way she composes that, like
and
the
vocalizes
instrumentation is phenomenal.
So good.
Very hard hitting.
Yeah. And then the last line, she, instead of screaming, old habits die screaming, she just sings it very softly and sort of like almost like sob breathes, she does that.
There's a lot of emotion in that. Kind of like this is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper.
Oh, yeah. That's this whole
That's the
song.
feeling of this song.
Ooh, the bridge. This is one of my favorite bridges on the album, and I'm going to read it to you because I think it is so cool. 6 weeks of breathing clean air. I still miss the smoke. Were you making fun of me with some esoteric joke? Now I want to sell my house and set fire to all my clothes and hire a priest to come and exorcise my demons, even if I die screaming. And I hope you hear it. Oh,
Rough.
rough. I have chills. Again, the if I die screaming is like a reframing of old habits die screaming. It's just it's so good.
I'm gonna get you back. The double meaning in the title,
Yes,
is just like you read it and it's like, there's a double meaning in that, and she's like, yeah, I know,
that's the whole
and
song.
I can't decide which one I want to mean.
Yeah, am I gonna get you back, like pay you back the way what you did to me, or am I gonna get you back? Am I gonna be your wife, or am I gonna sharpen my knife? I don't know.
And there's another instance
bike.
of her identifying herself with a car. In that, calling herself the Aston Martin that he drove into a ditch.
Yep.
Which, it's just, I would love to go back and just trace that specific image of she feels like a car.
Yeah, being driven around.
Being used, being crashed.
Shown off,
and then crashed.
Yeah.
Not valued or respected or taken care of as a person.
Yeah. Or a car.
Yeah.
An interesting line I had forgotten about in this one is flip the script and leave you like a dumb house party.
Yeah, that flip the script idea is back.
It's back, and it does remind me of the Betty cardigan situation in Folklore.
Or he's going to come to the party and say sorry in front of all of her friends.
Yeah.
Her stupid friends.
Because
she doesn't.
Because this is a dumb house party. There's something there.
There's something there.
Yep. And I'm frustrated that I don't know all of what's there.
That's the theme of this episode. This has been the theme of this episode.
Something's
going on, and we don't know quite what it is.
But it's genius, and it's great, and I keep thinking about it.
It sticks with you for sure.
Yeah.
So that is actually all the time we have.
It is.
So we should thank our people.
Go right ahead.
All right. Big thanks to Joseph, our editor, the magician in chief.
Yes.
Big thanks to Talitha, our design lead, and Rebecca, our media manager. This has been a production of DieCast Media Group.
And thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. If you want to get in touch with us and tell us what's going on in this album, how should they do that? Should they maybe send us an email?
They should send us an email at makemeaswiftie@diecastmediagroup.com.
That's a mouthful.
It is. So it'll be in our show notes.
Great. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time for our final episode.
Oh, sad. Number 13.
It's
poetic justice.
It's been a journey.
It has.
All right.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.